welcome folks to round two of Gordon Tatusis Niganiwan Theater Summer Speaker Series. I want to welcome an amazing artist and today's guest speaker, Zoey Roy. Hello, Zoey. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
This is so exciting. Yeah, we haven't chatted in a while. Well, like just even like seeing your face on the screen and stuff. I mean, we talked on the phone, so it's really nice to see some more familiar faces. It's been a while.
I know, right?
So, just for the folks that haven't had a chance to go through your epic bio, by the way, cannot stress that enough. Epic bio. Why don't you tell us about yourself?
Okay, well, before I do that, I just want to quickly give a shout out to Andrea Letting, who is a powerhouse writer who wrote my bio for me. So thank you so much to her. I'm Zoey Roy, Cree Dene Métis, artist based out of Kingston, Ontario. I was born and raised in Saskatchewan. Definitely learned so much of myself and what it means, what it requires to be creative in Saskatchewan. And like the social discourses, the conversations that you have to be a part of. I've always been really tapped into these conversations. What does it take for communities to thrive? What does it take for me to thrive in community, specifically a community who has strategically oppressed Indigenous people, people that I love and care about in my own life. So having to go through the hoops to be successful in Saskatchewan definitely required a lot of love and support by so many people. And so I definitely say that I'm a product of community, living proof that community works. And yeah, I am now in my PhD at York University. I'm doing I'm focusing on education, more specifically community-based education. I am convinced that the education system that exists within public and Catholic school systems are not sufficient for our needs, for anyone's needs, to maintain a sense of humanity throughout the learning journey. I think we sacrifice a lot of our emotional needs in order to get ahead and make it in this economy. And I really want to give a new experience for young people who are learning. And so that's what I'm up to now.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Oh, such a journey that you must have lived. That's so amazing. Um, so yeah, just like what has it been like actually during the lockdown time? What's your time been like during all of this?
Well, I've been on the road for 7 years consistently. I all while trying to go to school and also like juggling different careers, if you will, or career paths. And what that means is that I've been busy in my mind. I maybe not so much time to reflect, not really knowing how much I needed to reflect until March 15th when everything stopped and they said, go home, stay home. I I was so confused. And then when I was home, I realized what I was missing in my life, how I'm a part of the problems that I create in my life. And then sitting with that kind of grief and shame for a little while, and then also taking the time to hear all of the solutions that I also have. And I started to clean up the mess within myself, if you will, start to reorganize my perceptions of my past, my experiences. And I think as a result, I'm able to look at my life, my journey, and my purpose through a new lens. And it hasn't been pretty,
Mm-hmm.
but it's been necessary. And to be honest, I couldn't be more grateful for this time that I had alone to reconfigure myself in this journey.
It's amazing. And I know we talked about this right before we were live, but you also finished a big part of your thesis that you were talking about.
Yeah, and I'm super nervous that my supervisor is watching. He might watch this. Hi, Daniel. My thesis is coming to you right away. Uh, yeah, I've been working with someone who helped me with the logistics of academic writing.
Mhm.
It wasn't a strong suit of mine. And in fact, I really rebelled against academia throughout all of my time as an academic because I felt like the academic process really took away the mystery that is required in art. Um, the comfortability we have as artists with the unknown is not so much accepted or supported or celebrated in academia. You really have to spoon feed the reader in academia, and I really struggled with that. So I got help, and I think
Mhm.
that's like the biggest lesson that I learned from this journey is that asking for help doesn't make me a weaker person. That I don't have to be good at everything. That's why collaboration is so essential to the learning journey. And as a result, I am now comfortable with my thesis because it's a whole project. I can feel good about giving what I have created to to whoever wants to read it. But more specifically, I want my research to benefit people who are supporting youth in inner city Saskatoon. And I truly believe that my research will do that. Yeah, thanks for asking that. It's been really big.
That's a huge accomplishment, when you just think about it. So I wanted to make sure I highlighted that because that's such an amazing thing to go through. And I can't imagine the types of challenges and like the intense research, the journey to complete something like that. So I just wanted to give you kudos on all of that. Um,
Yeah, thank you.
you don't have to go full into details, but what's the research on specifically? Is like the you journey? Yeah, because I wasn't too familiar.
Okay, yeah, I looked at the role of discretion amongst probation officers in Indigenous youth recidivism rates. And I specifically looked at um, what are the probation orders? How are those facilitated? How is that achieving reintegration and rehabilitation? Which is the mandate of the Youth Criminal Justice Act. How are these policies perceived by young people? How is the process of youth justice experienced by young people? How effective is the system? What gaps does it facilitate? And how is marginalization occurring amongst Indigenous youth in Saskatoon, sorry. So that's what my research is on. I interviewed probation officers, I interviewed young people, and I did a lot of my own research through a decolonial lens. How can justice be achieved? If the colonial legal system is replacing kinship ties, then what is the purpose of it? I really wanted to interrogate this notion of justice, and I
Mhm.
think I did that.
I cannot wait to read that. That's so amazing and brave thing to write. And yeah, like man, what
Yeah.
more can you say about that's a lot. So I can't wait to give it a read.
Thank
Um, you are such a creative person. You have like so many different aspects that you do, from poetry, being a writer, a musician. Talk us through your creative process. Do you like have more than one for each of those things, or like is it one process that encapsulates all that you do?
Well, like I could actually show you right now. Today I'm gonna write a song,
Ooh.
and I asked this young boy who I'm writing with. I said, "What do you want to write about?" And he said, "Culture and family." So I put culture and family into the middle of the paper, and then I just kind of meditate on that. What does that mean? And then what I'm gonna do is I'm going to split this into 4 quadrants. And in the top, I'm going to put think. In the top left quadrant, I'm going to put think. In the in the top right quadrant, I'm going to put feel. In the bottom left quadrant, I'm going to put do. And in the bottom right quadrant, I'm going to put connect. So then I'm going to start to ask myself, when I think about culture, what do I think about? And then I'm just going to start brainstorming words. When I think about family, what do I think about? And I'm going to start brainstorming words. How does culture make me feel? How does it feel to be a part of culture? What do I do to be a part of my culture? In what ways do I connect to my culture? So I go through this basic brainstorming activity, and I use that as kind of my graphic organizer. I do it when I teach music and stuff as well. And so then what you get, so this other one I did on identity and worldview. So then you start to have an honest look at the different components that are necessary for you to really think about your topic holistically.
Mm-hmm.
One of the challenges with the education system that makes it so effective for colonialism is that it only focuses on mental and physical aspects of self. It doesn't integrate spiritual or emotional intelligences or connection. And I guess it doesn't because there's one true religion that some people believe, and this sort of consciousness is what formulated the current education system. And so what I believe that does is it leaves people with a lack of access to their emotional self. And in my songwriting process, in all of the work I do, I really try to think about the spiritual and emotional aspects of said topic. And I feel like that it helps you connect to all of yourself. Yeah. I'm just going to tell you, like, the next thing that I really focus on is what is the tension? So after I have the brainstorming session, I'm looking at tension. So this morning I wrote a song, and I started it off with, okay, rise and shine, class is back in session. Let's bring back into perspective the things we've been neglecting. So basically, we're going into school, and I can feel the sense of unrest. And I think that's an artist's role, is to really reflect on the current times. And so right now I'm reflecting on how people are feeling about sending their kids back to school. And it's already scary. And then now this just adds another layer. And the people who are already burdened by oppressive policies are going to be oppressed that much more. And so as an artist, I get to empathize with these different perspectives, these different realities, and offer something to encourage, inspire, inform, intrigue, something in the people who listen to my work. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And yeah, just like on the, and I'm not like completely saying bad about the education system, but like, because I noticed I definitely get what you're saying, because there was a lot of lack of that. I know during my time growing up, which kind of like inspired like the theme that we did the 1 year for COE, which was Indigenous education. Indigenous education in the system there, and just, or the lack of, and just the lack of knowledge, and you're not being able to connect to those emotional states. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And like, for the people listening, I do think it's important to think critically of the systems that take up our time, our energy, and our money. And also to be open to other ways that you can go about things like teaching and learning, or injustice, or education, or like taking care of children in your community, or like, how do we look out for each other? Because the systems that are in play aren't there necessarily to look out for us. That's our job for each other. And I also am not talking trash about the education system. I think it serves a purpose, but it serves a purpose for people who who benefit from policies, and it definitely casts a burden on people who don't benefit, people who are viewed negatively, and also they're a hub for racism, structurally, institutionally, or personally. So yeah, of course, you have to be critical.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that time could have been used to like help educate in a good way. So we're like, who's this person? You know, what's their story instead of automatically jumping to that stigma. So
Yeah, or like really the stories that we tell. What are the stories that we tell in schools? And why are those stories important? What stories are we not telling in school? And that's also why places like Gordon Tatus's Nagano Theater, that's why like youth facilitated arts programs and opportunities are so essential. Yeah, so that's why I don't have a job, and that's why I continue to do creative work. So I can illuminate and highlight the voices and of young people and celebrate their reality. Yeah, we don't have to be old to know our life matters. Children, your life matter right now, and that's a real motivation for the work that I do.
and snapping my fingers for that. Absolutely. Um, so what actually has been like, I know you touched on it a little bit about, yeah, the education, but what has your journey been like growing up, leading you up to the person you are today?
I think a lot of stuff. I've always been a very creative person. I've always been a very curious person. And so keeping that in mind, that my journey has always been quite free. I grew up between my dad and my mom, and worked. Both worked a lot, and I mean that's what families are typically like. And I mean all kids, all people have some resentments from their childhood, and that definitely fueled me because it was so magnified as a teenager when I was rebelling, just as teenagers do. I was trying to make sense of my life, but I was trying to understand what it meant to be an Indigenous person. What does it mean to be a good Indian girl? That was really on the tip of my like consciousness as a teenager. I wanted to belong so bad. And I was a creative kid. I looked for people who looked like me, and uh, and I became friends with them. I learned about Indigenous people from like this before. So I guess I dealt with the implications of being Indigenous before I knew what it meant to be Cree, what it meant to be Dene, what it meant to be Métis. They didn't give you that option. They either said you were First Nations status, non-status, or Métis, and I didn't know what kind of Indigenous person I was. So that pursuit of identity was at the forefront of my journey as a teenager. And I looked for myself in really dark places, just as a lot of young people do, and I looked for familiarity. I spent a little bit of time in youth justice when I was 13 and 14. In that time, I was a street kid. I had all of the answers. My parents were strict. I didn't want to live by their rules, so I ran away. And and when I was in this situation, it was really alarming how many Indigenous people were in jail, in youth custody. And there was kind of a culture there that I guess was I was afraid to be a part of it. And I already was a part of it. I was looked at as a young person who needed help, and the state was going to provide me this help. So I didn't get the help that I needed from the state. Rather, I felt really neglected by the state, and I knew that if I didn't take ownership of my own life, if I didn't like swerve the system would get me. I would go into group homes, I would go into whatever system, and it wasn't that my parents didn't want me. It was that I was confused about who I was and where I belonged. The last thing I needed was system intervention. Nonetheless, I started going to youth programs. I went to Paved Arts. There was a music program called the Killer Bees Project. And me and some friends, I made some friends there. I think I went there alone. I made some friends, and they were all into music. This was the Unsatisfied Poets and Low Rise. I started to make a lot of friends who were making music. And I've always been quite business oriented, really into marketing, really into building relationships. And as a young person, I started speaking on my life very, very early. I was 15 when I started speaking on my life, and I was approached by the Rotary Club, and these were, you know, the 1% of Saskatoon. I could see how business worked, and I could see how I could benefit from business people. And so I didn't know better. I just started going to Toastmasters meetings, going to Rotary meetings, speaking. And I learned that for every one thing you want from people, you have to be able to offer 5 things in return. I was broke. I was just trying to make it by. And I didn't have a lot of skills, but I had a lot of time and a lot of willingness and nothing to lose. And that was kind of the attitude I needed at that time, because I just tried everything new, everything that I can get involved in. I volunteered as much as I could. I worked, I applied for the jobs when there was jobs available. I asked for help. I looked for mentorship. And I just didn't stop. And when I was 18, I got connected with Cadane Headley and Youth Launch and Crew. And they connected me to different organizations, different opportunities, different people around Canada. I started going to like youth conferences around Canada. They introduced me to people who would later become my mentors, people like Peter Hodgson, Linda Albright, people who believed in me. I found people to believe in me. And like I said, I had nothing to lose, a lot of willingness to learn and a lot of time. So just like I did in Saskatoon, I started to volunteer around Canada, offer whatever I had to offer. And people saw a lot in me, even though I didn't see a lot in myself. Again, that attitude of like, what do you have to lose? Like, you might as well check it out. The alternative is not checking it out and just wishing you would one day. And yeah, so that was really, really big for me. I started traveling around Canada around that time, and I kind of never stopped since. As a child, I made goals for myself. I told myself that I'd get to know my school, get to know my community, get to know the city, get to know the province, get to know Canada, and then get to know places around the world. As a young person, it wasn't safe to get to know Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan was, you know, it's very racist, and we still have a lot of challenges to deal with. So I bypassed Saskatchewan, and I found people to believe in me in other places. I surround myself with helpers. I surround myself with people who aren't going to tell me I'm doing good when I'm doing half-ass work. Yeah, people who really like to see me show up for myself. I think that's really what I've been up to. As a result, you know, I've been successful as an artist, and all of these different career paths that I went down, I kind of see them as like I see them as like picking up like toys. You know, when a child is in a playroom and they look around at the toys, you pick up a toy and you play with it, you check it out. Doesn't mean the child has to become the toy. The child picks up the toy, enjoys the toy until they're done enjoying the toy. Then they put it down. They might see another toy. They go pick up that toy. That's kind of what I do. I really like film. I pick up film. I really like food. I like to make food. I really love song. I like to make songs. I really love kids. I like to make art with kids. These are just things that I do. I'm so lucky that I get to live my passion, and people appreciate what that process is like. Yeah, so I'll leave that.
That's, oh man, that is so amazing. Just things you learn about folks and their journeys really, really touches your heart. So I thank you so much for sharing that part of your life with all of us here.
Yeah.
We do have a question from the chat, if you don't mind. How would you like to see Black, Indigenous, people of color artists and independent producers of theater supporting Indigenous artists and stories? And what role do you see not being fulfilled by these non-artists?
Okay, well, independent producers of theater. Okay, so I think like if you have the capacity to if you have the capacity to collaborate with an artist who might not have access to the same skills to write a grant, where do you go to find and access grants? What are the different things you need to know in order to navigate your career and support your bottom line as an artist? Just one-on-one mentorship that is beyond project based. One of the biggest problems we face is that we are I want to say submerged, or like we are in a programs and service kind of environment that's really harmful for sustainable change. And so what we have is a bunch of artists, tons of talent, tons of creativity, lack of access, lack of connection. We need hubs for centers, places for people to come to share their ideas, to try things new. I think the arts, like specifically things like clowning or play-based kind of stuff, would be really beneficial for just community members. I think everyone is an artist. Self-expression is the mother tongue of all of humanity. We learn to silence our creativity, which means we learn to silence our subconscious. And what I really think is such a gift to humanity is our creativity. So finding places, just simple places to create space for people to create, that is the first and foremost thing that I think is necessary. And this way you have multiple generations of people coming together. They're not youth programs, they're not elder programs. That's not how our societies work. We are communities of people. And I think it would be beneficial to have spaces for people to come together. And this is how we amplify the stories that are relevant, the stories that are necessary, the stories that are hard to tell. And that's also how healing happens. I also think that is not being fulfilled to its potential. And there are some real structural challenges to why we are in this environment of programs and services, and it really does harm our ability to create sustainable change. I think philanthropy can step up in the arts in a big way. Decolonizing wealth is definitely something that's on my mind in regards to the arts right now. How are we funding and financially supporting the sustainability of artists who are committed to creating community change? I think that's important.
Do you ever find it difficult to kind of keep up with it all when you kind of like you're constantly surrounded with like certain negativities, and whereas like I've been to conferences and where some are just kind of like on the verge of giving up on it, or just like nothing's going to change? How do you work through like being kind of like in those environments? Like I know I'm someone that struggles with that, but I still have that sliver of hope to keep fighting for. What's it been like for you?
Yeah, well, your attitude is your choice. Like, if we can just remember that our attitude is a choice, that we can harness that power, we can have that back. You don't like, I really try not to engage too much with people in deficit-based conversations. I think programs and services are largely rooted in deficit-based kind of ideologies of, especially in reporting, like how many people of color did you or how many people did you serve? How many people of color? These are just numbers. There's no quality in it. It's all quantity based. And so what pisses me off, what upsets me rather, is the lack of critical conversation with power dynamics, how it's distributed, and also this kind of thinking that there's only so much, as if the world is not open. I think the world is a lot more open than we give it credit for, in that we have a choice to view it from a tiny little place, or we have a choice to step back and look at what else could possibly be around. This is why I live so privately. I really need the space so I can hear and reflect on all of the different voices, the different discourse, the different challenges that I see, so I can maintain my happiness. I also need to be creative, which means that I have to have hope. And so if participating in something diminishes my hope, it's the wrong place for me. Maybe I'm at the wrong place for it. That could also be it. I don't know if that was a very hopeful answer.
It's an honest answer.
Just checking yourself and checking it and looking, really analyzing and reflecting, and then going from there. And also stepping back. Yeah.
No, for sure. Sometimes, like, pretty much what you said is how sometimes I feel, but I don't know how to express it in words. So whether it's hopeful words or, just however it just comes out honestly, I think that's important to share. So yeah, no, thank you for those. We have another question actually from the chat. Do you think theater can or should try to impact policy? What does your ideal activist theater look like?
Is that my supervisor? It was a master's of public policy. That's what I just finished.
And they said it isn't, but the questions are still pretty epic.
Totally. Okay, so do I think theater can or should try to impact policy? I think it can. And again, I think it requires partnerships. And if a theater like Corinthatusis Naganiwan Theater wanted to impact policy, then I definitely know people who would be able to support that process. I think theater should be good at theater, policy should be good at policy. Theater and policy can work together to create change. I think in terms of like an ideal activist theater, I think that I think Corinthatusis Naganiwan Theater in a big way has always been kind of activist based. And I say that as a community member. I remember walking back and forth when SNTC, the old GTNT, was on Avenue C and 20th Street by the 220, where the 220 is now. I wanted to be part of the COV program. I applied to be a part of it. Oh man, it was like the thing to do. And I remember this movie or this theater production came out that summer, and it was on crystal meth. And crystal clear, yeah. And I was doing community-based theater programs, workshops like with puppetry and stuff like that with kids in the park as Metawegomek with the city of Saskatchewan. And we just so happened to be in the same park one time. I had never heard of crystal meth. I was only 15 years old. I wouldn't have known better. I didn't even know drugs existed to that. Like, I didn't know what drugs were. But after seeing that production, I was fully aware that I will never participate in using crystal meth. I was so terrified of it because because it showed me so honestly the effects of it. This is an example of activism, I think, because I was led to that show. I was not someone who typically got to experience theater because I was 15. Like, I had no money. Uh, and 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 I got access to go because SNTC purposely tried to find young kids who were in my situation. There was a lot of us to go to this, and as a result, it had a direct impact in the choices that I made in my life, and for that I'm so grateful. But I'm more grateful to know that it's been years and years and years and years of GTNT doing this work. I would like to see GTNT be more supported, because the capacity in the relationships that you're building through your programs is actually making a massive difference in people's lives. And we might not realize it right away, but we might, be 30 years old thinking about that one theater production that you've seen when you were 15, being like, whoa, that helped me dodge a bullet. Thank you. So it could be as simple as that. And that's how it worked for me. Yeah.
No, I absolutely agree. Yeah, that show, I believe it was the 2006 Circle of Voices, written by Don Dumont, and it was such a powerful show that it kind of got, even after the COV had graduated, they downsized the cast and they still took it on tour because it was just such something that was happening, devastating in the community at that time. And I remember being a part of that show. And absolutely, there's a lot of things that I'm grateful over the years that I've learned or given me the things to reflect on or not realize till later when I look back on the topics that were focused on, because I had no idea about those things. Even just learning about what it is to be Métis and asking those questions, or like crystal meth, what's that? Or Aboriginals without official leave, and that story. There's so many different things that I would never have known, things I would never have asked questions on if it weren't for productions like this taking on those tough topics even at a young age, because it helps steer you in a different way, or it could help just think things through and not just rush at it. So I am absolutely grateful for every single year that the COV had put on something tough to tackle. It's important.
I really think that mentorship is the key component that we're missing in our communities. I think that is the most significant feature, I think, of the COV program, is the mentorship, because these people, a lot of the people in COV went on to be stars, to have careers in theater, to even to go in different routes in the arts. It was a jump off, but it was a jump off that was supported, and it gives people like a little whisper that,
hey,
like,
everyone.
where to find us. I can imagine lots of people are coming into your office, like, just popping in after 3 years because they still know where to find you. And that accessibility, I think, is really necessary, because it's scary. It's scary being an artist. But I think mentorship should exist prior to any crisis situation. I think mentorship is preventative if you want to go in that like high risk kind of conversation, which I think is total bull. But yeah, I think young kids, Indigenous youth, they do not need to be helped more than they need to help. Indigenous youth have a lot to offer. And I think we can find places for them to help and contribute to the well-being of our communities and our society. Because one of the main things I think we're missing is a role, a sense of belonging. And yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
No, I agree. And even when people ask, like, where are you located, when they were curious, and I would tell them, well, located right on 20th Street. Like, I had no hesitance to say, well, I'm on, because there's, again, that stigma behind that street. I'm like, there's positivity that happens here. And I love that we're located in
Yeah.
this community. It's important.
There should be more. There's 22 churches on 20th Street. There's no need for 22 churches on 20th Street when it's predominantly Indigenous. Like, I think there's other opportunities, other places that we can gather that is not with the goals of indoctrinating people into one way of knowing. And that's as simple as that.
Yeah. It's a town of churches and pawn shops and us.
But also home.
But also absolutely a heart of home. I think we're part of the heart on this, this area of town. Like, I'm proud to come here all the time.
Aw, I miss it.
Oh. Well, we certainly miss the traffic that we used to have, pre all the safety measures and stuff.
Yeah, totally.
But we are still here. So yeah, we're coming close to the end of our time. I welcome any questions or comments from any of you folks coming out here, and as well. What's the by the way, I almost forgot this. My apologies. I'm gonna jump back a little bit from your bio. That you've been in you taught in about 500 classrooms in a 3-year period.
Yes. I love teaching kids so much, and the classroom is the most accessible way for me to engage with kids. I like to transform the classroom and turn it into like a space where we break the rules a little bit. No, not break the rules for the purpose of breaking the rules, but break the rules so we can come out of our shell. Break our shell, rather. The teacher turns into a DJ and we write songs. And the kids write songs about things that are important to them, things that are silly to them, things that are just reality of their life. And so I started doing workshops with the National Arts Center about 5 years ago. I used to do this work for free, actually, and then I started asking for a fee when I started university because I had to pay for school and I didn't want to get a job because I was an artist, and I was like, let's just check it out and see if I can make it by. I've been really, really supported to do everything I love for a long time, but particularly in classrooms, it is a breath of fresh air for the kids. They get to talk about really, I don't know, really fun and interesting things. I want to share a song with you by some kids.
Yes, please.
Here, I will I'll share it with you now. I'm gonna play a beat. Oh man, and we should talk about the Cookum rap after this.
Oh yes, we have to.
Okay. Okay, I'll put it to the. Oh, I haven't. Okay. Here. We're the MEC youth, and we'll tell you who we are. Yeah, we're gonna go far, just like the shooting stars. Here's the truth for your ear, and we'll tell it to the world. Get up and grab your gear, and the story will unfold. We got goals, we got hope, and our words are so dull. We're the best, but we got stress, and we're finding ways to cope. Don't try to mess with our dresser, we'll put you to the test. Don't ever think we're any less, cause if you blink, then we progress. We're the MEC. You don't underestimate us, representing Muscatine. Hey, you gotta love us. On into our Cookum, sneak rich for all your love. We promise to grow up to be someone you're proud of. We know it won't be easy, yeah, it's kind of hard, but if you promise to make us some greasy Bannock-and lard, then we're gonna go far. Yeah, we'll graduate, and we'll never forget that Muscatines the place. Hey. Yay, give them a round. That's grade 6, 7, and 8 at Muscatine. down in Treaty 4. Yeah. So that's just like one example. Every school, every classroom I go into, I have this formula, the same formula I showed you that I use for my own writing process. I do that with the kids. I do it in a really quick way so that we get past like the self-doubt, the self-criticism, the trash talk between kids, you know, the projections of negativity, whatever we learn from the adults. Yeah, I do it quick, and in that way, I'm able to quickly remind kids you have everything you need. Yeah.
That was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. Oh,
Yeah.
that is awesome. Those kids must have been so lucky to have someone like you come and see them. Like, wow, that's just thinking about how many lives you kind of just made a difference for them. So you're just an amazing person. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
So what do you have actually? What do you got coming up? What's something that's passionate that's on your plate coming up?
Uh-oh.
You don't have to go into details, or just like something you're excited on, anything like any teasers, or just.
Well, I wish I could show you a song. Can I show you a song? Am I able to play a song?
Yeah.
And
yeah, we got time.
It'll work? Okay, let me try to play it. And you just tell me if it... Give it a try. Okay. Yeah, this is cool. So I'm working on an album.
Ooh.
I am working on another book. I am on my second year of my PhD. I just applied for for a job for the first time ever at an Can you hear it?
I could hear it, but now the sound has disappeared.
Okay, good. All right, here we go. Nobody's ever heard this song before.
Oh my gosh.
Right now. They said lock the doors, it's time to stay in. It's time to stand still, cause I run in, you did. And in the quietest moments when I'm alone in the house, I hear the words of my truth, the ones that I am about. If they don't repeat, I address the ones that are wrong. Address why would you say that if they don't make you strong? I correct as I go, hear what's deep in my soul. I really wanna know what's been blocking this road. I've been a tyrant, staring at my own success, making enemies with myself, the only one playing chess. I put myself in checkmate, lest I forget, I'm just doing my best. I need some love with some depth, some of that freedom that only comes from regret, and all of this energy that comes from good rest. Take it what's being heard, let it go. Forget what you heard, roots flow. You gotta wiggle it just a little bit.
Wow. That's positive vibes coming from that. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, totally. That was super fun. I'm so happy that I shared it with you. I've never released music ever.
Oh man, that is so amazing. Like, ah, you can just feel the. I mean, I'm just looking at a screen and I can already feel like the positivity jumping at me. I don't think we could like top that off. So again, Zoey, I want to thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. If anyone on the live wants to chat with me in the future, my email is zoeyroy.creative@gmail.com. I welcome conversations, jobs. And yeah, thank you so much for having me.
And thank you, audience, for those of you that were able to join us in. And stay tuned for next Friday. Our next third artist will be Donna Michelle St. Bernard from New Harlem Productions in Toronto, Ontario. So thank you all so much for joining us today. Have a good weekend.
Awesome. Bye.